After 10 years of smoking weed almost every single day, I finally quit for good. And now I feel the best I've ever felt. Here's how I did it and how you can too. Easily, without feeling like you're giving up anything. Chapter number 1. How I got started. The first time I properly felt high was in a boarding school in Sweden. We had some exchange students come from America, and I remember one guy named Josh told me that he had brought with him some weed-infused brownies that he had made himself. I was a very curious young boy and it felt exciting. It felt dangerous. So, without much hesitation and any thought of consequence, I said, fuck it, and ate a brownie. I didn't know what would happen. I was just curious how it's going to make me feel. And boy, did I really feel it. We were sitting in my friend's room playing some video games, and Josh told me that it's going to take about 1 to 2 hours to really kick in. And sure enough, after an hour, I started feeling weird. My head was spinning, I couldn't understand the guys, the social dynamic became strange, and I started feeling extremely paranoid. And for a good reason. My boarding school had random drug tests, which means that I could get tested anytime and get expelled from school. This was the first time I felt the so common paranoia when you get high. Thoughts of me being caught were overwhelming my mind, and I promised myself that if I came out of this alive, I would never do it again. I managed to get myself to my room and with my head spinning, fell asleep. I did not like my first time getting high. It was not the rosy, happy, laughing state that I was sold by rappers, movies, etc. Somehow, I didn't get caught. So, I was supposed to never do it again, right? But the drug is a very sneaky little thing, and once it plants its roots in your mind, it starts growing little by little. Chapter 2. First time, it felt fun. I tried weed a few more times, but every time I tried it, I didn't like it. So, I concluded that I don't like it and it's not for me. Alcohol was my drug of choice. In my freshman year of university, I formed a group of friends who all spoke Russian. We prided ourselves by our ability to drink enormous amounts of alcohol. Well, to no surprise, after about 3 months of recklessly poisoning myself, I started getting pains in my stomach. I decided not to continue hanging out with that group of people. So one day, shortly thereafter, my good Thai friend Gun asked me if I would want to come with him in the evening to a friend's house to just hang out. I knew the guy he was referring to and his group of friends. They were all known for smoking weed. And since I didn't like weed, I told him that I don't think I would really fit in. But Gun told me not to worry about it. He told me that the guys were very nice and that if I don't want to smoke, I don't have to. No one is going to push me into doing it. That sounded fair, so I decided to go with him, especially since I felt a little bit lonely. When we got to Omar's house, that was the guy, I could practically smell the weed from the outside. We walked upstairs and I saw a big group of people all sitting in a circle on the floor, passing around joints, laughing, having a great time. They greeted me nicely and I took a seat on the floor as well. The atmosphere was very different and, as promised, no one cared if I smoked or not. People were very relaxed, they listened to chill music, everyone was respectful and caring for each other. That was a very different environment from the Russian group where it was basically a dog-eat-dog atmosphere. What surprised me was that I was a stranger in their group, but right away they hosted me like I was part of them, part of their family. Every time I was passed a joint, I would just pass it on to the next person sitting to the left of me. I thought, well, since I'm not smoking, I'm not gonna get high, right? Yeah, right. Little did I know that if you sit in a hot box, you will get high, no matter what. So, after about an hour, I felt something different. My perception has changed ever so slightly. The world slowed down a little, the music was louder, the colors were brighter, and I thought to myself, wait a second, am I high? Is this what it's like to feel high? And that's where it all started. I exclaimed and told the group, guys, I think I'm high, but in a nice kind of way. They all cheered me up and said something along the lines of, welcome to the club. And after that evening, I started coming to Omar's every day. First taking just one puff, then a few more, and before long, I started buying my own weed. I learned how to roll joints, and now I was getting high every day and was practically becoming a stoner. That's when the habit started forming. I began associating in my mind having fun and good atmosphere with smoking weed. Weed didn't give me hangovers, well, at least not as bad as alcohol. I would sleep and wake up feeling physically normal, except that if I smoked too much, I would get a slight headache and a foggy mind, but that seemed like not a high price to pay for an evening with friends. Oh, how wrong I was. Now I realized that the true cost was tremendous, because the cost was an addiction. The cost was being hooked and dependent on the drug for the next 10 years of my life. But when I was 18 years old, I didn't think that was a possibility for me. I'm not like these other drug addicts who can't control their drug use, right? I'm just having fun. I can quit whenever I want. Now is just not the right time. And so, the habit started forming. Wanna have fun? You need weed. Wanna relax? You gotta smoke some weed. It started to seem that everything was better with weed. Going to the beach? Well, let's get some weed. Going to the museum? Guess what? Let's get high before. Now looking back on it in hindsight, I realized that it was not the weed that I liked, but rather the group of people. Who doesn't want to be cool, right? Especially when they're 19 years old. Well, I certainly did. And since I associated weed with cool, it started becoming part of my identity. I became that guy who would always have weed with him at a party. And you know what's the worst thing? I took pride in that. How dumb I was. I remember one time my friends were throwing a big party and they invited this one rapper whom I listened to as a kid. He was known for being pro-legalize. So I thought, oh wow, this is so cool. I want to make sure that I can smoke a joint with him. So I bought 10 grams of weed and I even designed and built a custom case for pre-rolled joints. I rolled something like 20 joints for the evening, put them inside the case I built, and I thought I was the coolest guy ever because I could just pull out the case, open it up, and spark a joint. Speaking this out loud now, I really can't believe how silly I was. But back then, I didn't realize it. It was a ridiculous amount of weed to smoke in one evening at a party, but hey, I was that guy who always has a joint, so how could I disappoint the people who didn't even care about me? Weed became a big part of my life. In fact, so big that I started doing dumb things on it and getting in trouble with the law. Chapter number 4, getting in trouble for weed. So let me tell you a few stories that I can remember when I got in trouble because of weed. One time, I was driving from Russia to Finland by car and I had one joint with me. I didn't want to see the weed go to waste, so I thought, hey, let me smoke it right before the border. I guess I was testing the boundaries to see how far I can take it. Reckless behavior. So I smoked the joint right before the border. We pull up and guess what? There was one of those drug sniffing dogs. Oh my God. Immediately as I walked inside, the dog started barking and jumped on me. I was completely baked out of my mind and all I could do was say, "Oh, hello little doggy, you're so cute." But the dog had other plans in mind than being cute. They searched me, my then girlfriend, our car, full search, and luckily we didn't have any weed on us, but my girlfriend had traces of weed in her bag. They gave us some sort of a saliva test and correctly concluded that we were both high. I was given a big fine and was told that I couldn't drive home from the border. So I had to call my friend embarrassingly and ask him to pick us up. Two of them had to drive to the border and then drive us back home. You might think, okay, well, surely that was a big lesson and you wouldn't do that again, right, George? Well, wrong. Another time, I was driving from Amsterdam to Germany and I stopped at McDonald's to get some food and to roll myself a joint for the road, right? Because that's what people do. People were passing by in the parking lot and someone saw that I was rolling drugs in the driver's seat. So about an hour later, I was on the highway. It was pitch dark and over a sudden I see yellow and red lights in the back mirror. I look and it says, "Please follow us and pull over." I was high and instantly felt my heart sink to my feet. Luckily, all of the weed stuff was in one paper bag on the passenger seat. So as I was pulling over, I opened the passenger window, took the bag and threw it out of the window as hard as I could. The last thing I heard was the metal grinder hitting the concrete and ding! They pull me over, do full search, check every single part of my luggage. Again, they didn't find anything. So with some luck and talking, they let me go and reminded me that weed is illegal in Germany and that I cannot drive high. That was back in the day. I became more careful, but at that point, it was too late because I started getting first glimpses that I was addicted. Chapter number 5. First realizations that I'm addicted and first time relapse. You see, addiction doesn't happen overnight. You become addicted gradually, over time. As the saying goes, the chains of habits are too weak to be felt until they're too strong to be broken. You don't think you're addicted. I mean, who does? Everyone tells themselves, I can quit whenever I want. I just don't want to right now. I'm just having fun. Until one day you hit a low point, you try to quit, and you fail. That's when you realize for the first time that you no longer have control over the drug, and now the drug has control over you. Don't fool people, and remember that you are the easiest person to fool. The mind is a genius thing that will come up with all sorts of stories to help you justify your drug use. Oh, it helps me relax, it helps me to decompress, it helps me in social settings, I become more creative, and on and on and on. I'm sure that if you are addicted to weed, you've told yourself these stories before. I first started realizing that I was addicted after the military, after about 3 or 4 years of using weed. I began telling myself in the morning that today I will be sober. And sure enough, the evening would come around, I would get a craving, I would cave in, and the next thing I know, I would find myself sitting alone in my room, high, contemplating why I couldn't keep this promise to myself. Was I addicted? Did I no longer have control over the drug? But admitting to yourself that you are addicted and you have a problem is not easy. It took me 10 years to be fully honest to myself and to seek help. I remember my first big relapse. I managed to stay away from alcohol and weed for about 1.5 years. But because I didn't have the right frame of mind, the whole time I was sober, I would get cravings and I felt like I was missing out on the good, the fun, the relaxation. The big fear in my mind that I had was, will I ever be able to enjoy life again? Is this all there is to it? How am I going to relax now? And after 1.5 years, I remember I was in the gym listening to some old music that I used to listen to when I smoked with my group of friends, and I was feeling very exhausted by the end of the weekend after the gym. And that was the trigger for my mind to start craving. So I made up my mind to smoke just 1 joint. And that was a big mistake. 1 joint led to another 5 years of smoking. Now, finally, after 10 years of smoking, I quit once and for all. And I can confidently say that I will never again smoke weed or drink alcohol. Here's how I did it and how I'm able to stay sober without relying on my willpower. Chapter number 6, how I quit the easy way. Now, imagine I told you that you can quit right now without relying on willpower and never want it ever again. Sounds so good to be true, right? Well, it's actually not. I did it, and I know that you can do it too. And it's a lot easier than you think. You see, we've all been brainwashed into thinking that weed offers us some kind of a benefit, that it serves us. It offers us release from stress. It helps us relax. It makes us more creative. But you know what's the truth? Those are all lies and brainwashing. Weed doesn't offer you any benefit. It didn't offer me any benefit. I just lied to myself. Matter of fact, weed is destroying you. It's destroying your momentum in life. It's robbing you of health, of money, and of positive relationships with your friends and family. It numbs you. It dulls your mind. It turns you basically into a vegetable. If you want to quit, you must see weed for what it is. It's an addictive drug that has been romanticized by the media. Weed creates a negative loop where it offers temporary escape from reality at a cost of tomorrow's uneasiness. And the only way to get rid of that tomorrow's uneasiness Guess what? It's to get high again and escape reality. And here's the truth. You only want weed until you think it gives you some sort of benefit. As long as you believe that weed offers you some kind of a benefit, that it serves you, you're going to want it. But as soon as you realize that you have been brainwashed and it doesn't give you anything and it only takes away from you, well, the only logical decision is to never use it again, right? I, like any drug addict, had the fear of, how am I going to deal with the pressure that life inevitably gives me? Am I ever going to be able to relax and enjoy my life again? How am I going to just decompress? But now that I'm sober, all those fears seem like a distant illusion. My life is more colorful, more rich, and my mind is clear, and I know I'm living true to myself and to what I desire in my life. To quit weed, realize that you are not giving up anything. Instead, you are freeing yourself from an addictive substance, and you can finally be free. Stop relying on a crutch and be free.